Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
You are listening to the Brilliance Business Show, conversations with leading experts in business. And today I have a wonderful guest, Alan Adamson. Alan is co-founder and managing partner of Metaforce, and our topic today is how to execute things brilliantly. So I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you today, Alan.
It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to talking as well.
Before I get started, I just need to make a legal disclaimer that Alan is not offering legal advice or legal assistance. So let's get started with the show. Alan, can you share with our listeners, our audience, a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, I started wanting to be a filmmaker and ended up in the world of advertising, and pretty quickly after that in the world of marketing at Unilever, and always had a enjoyable time because we were challenged with how do you make more people buy your product when quite a few were already buying it. And that required observing their behavior, thinking about how they lived, and trying to figure out how your product could be relevant and different for them. And that's sort of how I got into the business. And over the years, as you know, the fundamentals are the same. You still need to know what your customer wants and try to provide them a service or a product that is different and relevant. But the challenge is become much more significant because there's so much competition and so many messages being thrown at every possible customer that to break through, you need to be far more precise and focused.
And I have to touch on that a little bit. That is quite a common problem as well that you're solving, Alan, because who doesn't want more customers? Even when you have a great base of customers, we all want more customers. And human behaviour, that is behind everything, people's decisions, the choices they make. So I really like the work that you are doing, Alan. Who are your clients? Who do you serve on a daily basis?
Mostly medium and large size companies, both in the B2B space where they're selling financial services or products from one company to another, or in the consumer space, whether it's a vodka or a toothpaste or a laundry detergent. Both the theory behind both of how you grow your business, if you're serving other businesses or you're talking directly to the customers, is the same. It's how you execute it that's a little different.
I agree with you totally there. And I'm a big person of collaboration. Alan, is that something that you champion as well?
Yeah, ultimately the best marketing and the best brand building comes from a team, multiple people looking at, the marketplace through different eyes. One of the things that when I was working on my last book called Shift Ahead was that companies and individuals get into trouble if they don't zoom out and get out of their own bubble and they only look at things from their perspective. And if you work with teams who each look at the problem slightly differently or the opportunity slightly differently, you're more likely than not to connect and break through than if you work as a solo practitioner just focused on what you see in front of your own nose.
Yes. Now, you touched on it a little bit there, and I was going to get to this as well, Alan. Your book, Shift Ahead, can you share just a few details of what the book entails, who would benefit from the book?
Yeah, what we looked at a couple of years ago was that everyone knows you need to constantly change to stay relevant. You don't have to read a business book to know that people are interested in what's new, what's different. And if you've been around a long time and done the same thing for a long time, that's sometimes not the most compelling reason to buy your product. But despite the obviousness of the need to change to stay relevant with what customers want today and what the marketplace challenges are, we were surprised that many companies had fallen behind and were not relevant. And we started to dig into, why did big brands, whether it's Kodak or BlackBerry or many others, seem to be here today and gone tomorrow? Didn't they understand they needed to constantly change to remain relevant? And what we learned from looking at lots of industries, lots of big companies, small companies, even public libraries in the U.S., is that some of them, in fact, did change. And the theory of needing to change wasn't that big a deal, but actually getting a big company that's been successful doing what they've been doing for years to try something new is really difficult. And that's what Shift Ahead was about, is how to help you shift your business ahead and stay relevant.
What popped up into my head there, Alan, a great post popped up on my social media the other day saying most people want to change, but not many people are willing to change. And I thought that was a great quote that popped up on my social media. Alan, how can people get their hands on a copy of your book, Shift Ahead?
It's available in bookstores, and of course, in the biggest bookstore in the world, Amazon, still has it. And I think your quote was, most people, want to change. I want to be healthier and in better shape, and I know I shouldn't eat as many desserts and cupcakes as but there's a gap between knowing I shouldn't eat a cupcake every night and not eating a cupcake every night. And the same happens in business. There's no lack of desire to keep your business relevant. But, one of the things we found out, of course, is most people are very comfortable with the familiar. They're comfortable starting their day. They go to their office. They open some emails. They make, routines are very comfortable because the familiar is comfortable. It's sort of like having your favorite chair in your living room. You're just comfortable. Even though people look at that chair and say, boy, Mark, that's a really old, broken down, mushy chair, and you go, no, I love it. I've sat here for years reading, and I like it. So most people need to realize that they are more comfortable with what they did yesterday. And so changing requires the effort necessary to get out of a chair you thought was perfectly fine all your life and then try something new, which seems easy, but is in fact very hard. And in fact, the more successful the company has been, the more chances are that, it's worked for us in the past. This is what we did 4 years ago when this happened. And so we're going to, by golly, do it again. It tends to prevail. Old habits are hard to break.
I hear you on that, Alan. And the good thing is about rituals and routines and habits, we can learn new ones with repetition. We can really program those into our subconscious mind, and then they do become our new routines. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, the trick is to not be scared to try something new, because if you don't experiment, you won't succeed. And as we talked about earlier, look around a little bit, get some what we call peripheral vision. Most of us, when we're in business, we do a lot of tennis playing. When I play tennis badly, my objective is to really look at where my opponent is and try to hit the ball where they're not. And many businesses work that way. So if you're Coke, you're totally focused on what Pepsi's doing. If you're Gillette, you're focused on what Schick is doing. But as everyone knows, most of the time, those big brands don't get in trouble by worrying about the one right in front of them. They get zapped from somebody behind them, or they never even thought about. So it's almost more like playing golf, and I play that even worse. But, when you're playing golf, yes, you have to watch what your opponent is doing and, try to beat them. But you really have to focus on the ball, the customer, the wind, what's going on. You have to look around. You really need to zoom out. And I think the same is true in business. We found that too many people are just so focused on the dry cleaner across the street and what they're doing, or the shop down the corner. And yes, the shop down the corner may beat you, but more likely you're going to get beaten by somebody who's not doing exactly what you're doing and following you, but you're going to get in trouble by not paying attention to what's coming up behind you.
What sets your business apart, and what unique need are you filling for your clients and customers?
The other thing that's happened in the marketplace that led to Metaforce is that doing things good enough used to be good enough. If you had an okay website and did a little advertising and your salespeople weren't obnoxious and your product most of the time worked, that used to be good. But in the world we live in today, where word of mouth is such an important thing, as you know, no one shares an okay experience. No one says, oh, I took an airplane, and no one's taking airplanes right now, but I took a trip, and the trip got there on time, and the hotel had my room, and the lights turned on. No one shares that. You either share that I got to the hotel and they didn't have my room and it was full of bugs, or you say I got to the hotel and it was phenomenal and they had my, the Wi-Fi was already turned on and they had a glass of champagne for me. So people only share extraordinary, yet most of the marketing that we were seeing in the marketplace was average. And as I said earlier, average is over. So to address this, we decided that what's really needed is not to just check the box and knock out one of everything, but to do a few things extraordinarily well. And to help do that, we decided to create this sort of a special forces. So if you need a website, you need somebody who's great at a website, not somebody who's read how to build a website online. If you need advertising, advertising has to be brilliant, otherwise no one sees it. No one pays attention. So this notion of having a partnership where people have different expertise, some very focused on digital marketing, some very focused on influencer marketing, some very focused on traditional marketing, some focused on design and packaging, and some focused on word of mouth generation. And by having a collection of experts rather than people that are pretty good at just everything but not extraordinary at anything, it's led to an ability to help break through, to figure out, all right, if you want to do three things, these are the three things that will matter. Now here's a team of people that are phenomenal at those three things, not just okay.
And I have to agree with you. People will share extraordinary. No one shares if something's just mediocre or okay, but also people will share the bad. So that's why it's really important to stand out from the crowd and do great work so that it is extraordinary. Alan, why is your service especially important in today's modern world?
Because it used to be when you were doing marketing, you only had to worry about, is the product sort of work, as I said, put it in a nice package, do a little ad or some sort of publicity or promotion, and you were all set. Now, there are just so many ways to connect with people, and consumers tend to have a fairly bad, they've learned to multitask. Their attention span has shrunk down from where you used to sit on the couch and maybe watch a 60-second commercial or a 30-second commercial and pay attention, to now, if they're on a couch at all, they are, looking at something maybe in their hand, their phone, they're looking up, they're looking at a printed piece of material. No one is paying attention for more than 8 or 10 seconds to anything. And they've got 100 things going on in their head. And so to break through in that environment, you need to it's much more difficult. And so you need to realize your customer is as distracted and overwhelmed as you are. And to connect with them, you just can't say, hey, look at me and wave your hand once. You really need to focus and execute brilliantly.
And shift ahead, Alan.
Yeah.
Alan, can you share a few more details on the kind of services and products that you offer?
Yeah, I think, the two things that, again, the theory is easy, making it work is hard. When you're marketing a product, anything, there are many ways to do it. You could change the package, you could do a promotion, and the first thing you need to do today is to figure out, all right, all these things I could do to market my brand, market my product, but if I had to pick two, what would be the most important two? Or what should I, what should I focus on? And again, if you just do what your competitors are doing, well, they did a promotion, I'm going to do the same. They're offering a free product sampling. If you just follow the leader, you'll also fail. So the first step is to look at it and say, look, here's what everyone else is doing. Here's what you're good at. Let's pick out one or two things that you can do to break through. And once you identify, put in the right GPS coordinates there, we're going to try to change our packaging and do a promotion where we, give our, buy one, get one free, whatever the idea is. Then the next thing is all right, if you decided you want to redo your packaging, then you've got to find who's extraordinarily good at doing that. Because, most of the time, people are pretty good at thinking of what they may need to do, but are not as good as finding someone to help them do it incredibly well. And because of what we talked about earlier, that if you don't do it incredibly well, don't do it. It's better not to do anything than to do everything sort of okay, because you will feel like, oh, I did this and I did this and I did this. But if it's just average, if it's just okay, it doesn't work in today's marketplace. And so you're better off saying, I could do many things, but what are the one or two things I could do really well? And if I can't do them really well, how do I find someone to help me do one or two things really well? And less is more.
Alan, I know you have lots and lots of client success stories. What is one that really stands out in your mind?
It's usually not the biggest ones. I did a project many years ago for Central Park in New York City, and part of the challenge was how did you get more people to take care of the park? And as part of it, we looked at how consumers went into the park and why they dropped their water bottle on the corner and didn't put it in trash cans. What made a difference, and together with the Central Park Conservancy, came up with a plan to redesign the trash bins, create simple to use, clearly which ones are plastic, which ones are trash. But also the Conservancy came up with a really simple idea, which was set up the park so that everyone working in the park had their own little section. So when you went into the park, rather than see someone take care of the flowers and someone else take care of the cleaning of the benches and someone else take care of the trash, there would be one person, whoever it was, Debbie, and you were in Debbie's section of the park, and Debbie was responsible for everything. And so when people started to look at that and got to know each person in the park, it was no longer just an anonymous big park. You were in Debbie's backyard. And so if you knew Debbie and Debbie was responsible for everything in this little corner of the park, most people tended to not drop the trash on the corner, because you wouldn't do that in Debbie's backyard. And that simple change, was one of the many reasons that Central Park back then became much nicer. So it often, marketing is often just being a good observer of people and acting on that observation.
I agree with you totally, and I love that story as well, Alan. Alan, I have really enjoyed having a conversation with you today. I've enjoyed learning more about you, your business, how you're serving your clients. I'll definitely get my hands on a copy of Shift Ahead book. Is there anything I did not cover that you would like to share with our listeners today?
No, just be bold, try something new, and you will learn more from trying something new than doing what you did yesterday, again, just a little differently.
A great way to close the show, Alan. My last question for you today: how can our listeners connect with you, follow you? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, you can, of course, reach me at alan@metaforce.com or just Alan Adamson at shiftaheadbooks.com. And I'm looking forward to chatting with your listeners.
Thank you so much for being on the Brilliance Business Show, Alan. I've really enjoyed a conversation with you.
Thanks, Mark, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure. You have been listening to the Brilliance Business Show, conversations with leading experts in business.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.